Hi there, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of the answers and explanations for the Spanish 2 semester exam for the 2012-2013 school year. Here we are now, starting about midway through the exam with the imperfect tense part, page 2. Again, I just want to go back over this really quickly because this was one that people didn't do as well on as I thought they should have done overall across all of my classes. So for the imperfect tense, probably three things we got to remember. One, what are the irregulars? There are only three: ir, ser, and ver. The second thing we got to remember is how do we translate the imperfect into English, according to me? And the answer to that is was verbing, used to verb, or would verb. Hence the answers here. And then I guess the final thing we need to remember has to do with accents. Where do the accents go? And we know we have to put a written accent on the we form ending, hablamos, so habamos for an AR verb, on all the ER-IR endings, ia, ias, ian, etc., as well as on éramos, the we form of ser, and on íbamos, the we form of ir. And lo and behold, that's mostly to test those. Those are the questions that we had on this section and on the first page of it as well. So that's something that I think people are going to need to spend some time studying when we start thinking about the final exam, because all of this information will also be on the final exam. Continuing on, rewrite these sentences in the imperfect. Voy, the verb is ir. What's the imperfect of ir? Iba, which should be read. Oh well. And then me gustan las clases, so you got to make it me gustaban las clases, ending in an N because it's plural, the classes. And then the imperfect of soy, era, and the imperfect of asistir, asistia. So those are those answers. Now moving on to the preterite. The preterite, vastly different than the imperfect. Different endings, a lot more irregulars. So maybe what happened is people said, oh, I'm just going to focus spending my time studying the preterite. But as a result, a lot of people didn't seem to know their imperfect very well. And we're going to need to know both. But in any case, here we go. In the preterite tense, there are only two endings for we, amos and imos. The only two options. In the present tense, there is emos and amos and imos. But in the preterite, it's just amos and imos. He wrote, most people got this one right, escribió. And the endings for the preterite, most people got those right, so that's good. They saw, people were kind of all over the map on this one, but the correct answer is vieron, because ver is an irregular verb. And I think everybody got this right, so that was good. O with an accent for the he, she form for an AR verb. A lot of people were upset about this particular question, or people seemed to complain about it because they didn't know what it was or what it was saying. And that's okay. I put it in there just to see if people could do it or not. And some people could, which was good. The main thing I cared about, however, okay, which you would get credit for, as long as you gave me, you could recognize the verbs, and you put them in the preterite. Okay? Could you find out what the subjects were, and can you conjugate it correctly? That's really what I cared about. Putting the whole thing together in a coherent sentence was just the extra point. Okay? People weren't giving me the preterite, even though it asks for the preterite, they weren't giving me the preterite of gustar, which is me gusto or me gustaron. In this case, it's gusto because we don't have anything plural in here. We have el. So we know, oh, that's got to be singular. And then, of course, vivi, IR verb, I with an accent. Second page of preterite tense. All right. Again, people here started getting their present tense and their preterite tense confused with what those irregulars are. So that might be an area where people need to spend some time making sure that they know the difference. Here are present tense irregulars in the different groups. Here are preterite tense irregulars in the different groups. The verbs that are irregular in the preterite but only in the yo form are called kargarzars. We've said that 1,000 times. Not irregular yos. That's present tense, and I got a lot of that from people. They said, people remember that the correct answer is dijeron because for those chart verb J stem changers, they drop the I. Hence, this is not the correct answer. Mark the verbs that are third person irregulars. Again, this assumes, of course, that we know what all of our irregular groupings are. It can't be buscar because that's a kargarzar. There and dar are part of the same group, so that won't work. Empezar is a Kargar-Zar, so that won't work. Hacer is a chart verb. Decir is a chart verb. So the only verb left is pedir because it becomes P-I-D-I-O and P-I-D-I-E-R-O-N. The correct form of ir in the preterite is fue. And I always like this question because this question I took directly from things that people have written, going back in their wiki pages from the beginning of the year, when people start trying to write things, and then they start trying to use the preterite, and they use an ir. These are all the things that I got for forms of ir, so that's how I chose those. But the correct answer is fue. And the nosotros form of comer, er verb, so it has to end in imos, comimos. My friend did his homework. A lot of people didn't know how to say to do homework. The verb is hacer la tarea, and the preterite of hacer is hizo. That's something that everybody should know. I pointed it out to us. I said that's the important thing. It's really weird, especially in the third person, because it goes hi, instead of hic, it goes hiz. I liked the books. A lot of people got the gustaron, but, oops, it shouldn't be, it should be may, sorry. A lot of people, but they didn't get the plural part correct. They just wrote me gustó. That's I like the book. I liked the books, plural, me gustaron. And a lot of people put me dio or just do because they didn't, again, know how to say to give a shot. So that sort of came back and bit you in the took us a little bit. Preterite and imperfect together. We know that there are 5 steps, so that's good. The answer's right there as well. Special meanings, okay, is a step. It has to be step 5 because I only gave you 4 of the steps, and none of them were called special meanings. This is another one where I was a little disappointed that more people missed this than I thought they would. Keywords for the preterite. People just started putting everything. These are the only 3 that work. Hace 2 días. 2 days ago, anytime we said a specific number of times is preterite, and anoche. De niña, siempre, and antes, all of those are keywords for the imperfect. Most people got this one right, so that's good. And then I didn't write it down, but here's basically what you needed to do. The order of the steps for the Allegro 5-step process is important because the first one trumps the second, which trumps the third, which trumps the fourth. In other words, what do you do if you have conflicting information? Like I have anoche, and then I have the verb tener. Anoche tells me I'm supposed to use the preterite, but tener is always imperfect, so what do I do? All right, and the way you solve that problem is you look at, well, what's step 1? Because that's always going to win out. What's step 2? That's going to come second. If you didn't get that point across in your answer, you got the answer wrong. Cool. Translate the following sentences. Again, no big deal here for people. Preterite versus imperfect. So do you know the difference between the two? Imperfect, was living, used to live, would live. Used to practice, would practice. Or used to love practicing, would love practicing. Was walking, saw. Almost the exact same questions. I think the number 7 one is a little bit different. And then, of course, again in here, although, again, talk about this one, I was simply looking for you to show me that you can use preterite and imperfect. So you should be using, all the, key words in a sentence and make it a particular tense. Verbs that are always imperfect and put that in a particular tense. The formula and put that in a particular tense. Those sorts of things. Some people only wrote maybe 1 or 2 sentences. You weren't going to get a lot of credit on that. This page applies only to the honors class because they're the ones who had a section on commands. My regular class, this is what you should be working on right now, and what your test in January is going to cover commands. So I guess you can get a leg up if you watch this a couple of times. Escucha por favor. We only learned one kind of command so far, and that's an informal informal command. We know it's affirmative because there is no in front of it. Eat. How do we form? You just take the he, she, it form of the verb. Okay. Mark the verbs that have irregular to commands, which is another way of saying irregular informal commands. Every single one of these has an irregular to command. And Either it's irregular affirmative command or it has an irregular negative command. Only a few verbs have both. Okay. Don't do it. That's a negative command. How do you form that? Yo form, opposite ending. Don't do it. No lo hagas. Pronouns. On affirmative commands, they're attached to the end. And negative commands, they go in the front. So that can't be it, and that can't be it because the pronouns are attached, and you know that they go in the front in negative commands. So it has to be C or A. Well, ath is the affirmative command for ather. Hagas is the negative command. Yo form, opposite ending. And then the negative 2 command for saber is no sepas. So that's one that's obviously irregular. Again, all of these were irregular to see, did you know them? Did you pay attention to them? Yo form, opposite ending for every single one except for hugar. Kargar zars take the Kargar zar spellings. So that's why it's G-U-E-S. Tango, opposite ending. Ago, and ear is irregular bias. Spanish 1 review. I guess for some people they did poorly on this because by now they're all like mentally distraught. They feel like they're failing the exam anyway. They've been taking it for 2.5 hours. You just want to get out of that gym. I understand it. From my perspective, these were some of the easiest questions, but hey, what are you going to do? My Aunt Rosa is a little something. Well, we know that Rosa, an aunt, so that makes it feminine. So that means the adjective has to be antipatica. Can't be guapo, because adjectives and nouns have to agree. So, mi tia Rosa es un poco antipatica. What do we know about dia? We know that it's always masculine, hence it's el dia. Since it's el dia, we have to choose favorito. The words that are feminine, we know if it ends in a, dad, or cion, it's feminine. And we know mapa, even though it ends in an a, it's actually l, just like dia. Or any word that ends in ma, those are all masculine words. Part 2, estás, son, estoy, somos, and está. Although some people put in estás, but I accepted it because by this time I was like, whatever. Okay. Ser or estar, these all work. Okay. And then reading comprehension, I'm going to hold off on because I'm going to talk about reading comprehension when I come back in February because reading comprehension is part of the National Spanish exam, which we will be practicing for when I return. So there's the whole exam. Again, go back over the video and listen to it if you're not sure why a particular answer is. My presumption is for many of us, when we see the correct answer, we say, oh man, I knew that. But we certainly did highlight some areas, I think, where some people definitely need to pay a little bit more attention and focus a little bit better in their studying this second semester so that you can be more successful on the exam in May. See you later.